Okay, so welcome to the next video, and in this one we're going to be talking about creating some basic geometry in 3dsmax. So first of all, I'm going to expand, or I'm going to make this viewport full screen. So right click on the plus and click on maximize viewport. And the way to create some basic geometry is here on the right hand side. On the first tab is your create tab, and then you've got your geometry, your shapes, your lights, your cameras, helpers, space warps, and systems. So we're just going to look at the geometry tab for now. So if you click on this little sphere, you'll get box, sphere, cylinder, and all these objects. This is under your standard primitives. And if you click on box and you drag out and you release and you drag up, that will create a very basic box. So let's delete that by just pressing delete on your keyboard. And let's click on sphere and then just click anywhere, drag, and then release. That will create a sphere. Let's delete that. You can also, let's create a cylinder. So click, drag, release, and click again. There's your cylinder. And let's create a plane. So let's delete the cylinder, click on plane, and then just click and drag and release, and that will create a flat plane. And let's say you want to create something with specific dimensions. So we quickly looked at this in the unit scale video. So let's click on box and let's just drag out a box like that. And then in the properties or in the parameters section, it will actually give you the length, the width, and the height. So let's set the length to 2 meters. So just type in 2 and press enter. Let's set the width to 1 meter like that. And let's set the height to 0.4 meters, press enter, and then you know you've got a box with those specific dimensions. Okay, let's delete this box and let's look at the second button, which is shapes. So under shapes, you've got your line, circles, arc, n-gon, text, and all of those things. So let's start with line. So click on line, and then you can just click a couple of times, and that will create a normal line shape. And then if you close the shape, it will ask you, do you want to close the spline? Click on yes, and that will just create a very flat basic line object, which is not renderable, so you can't really render this. You need to extrude this, but we'll get to that in a later stage as well. So let's delete that. Same with circle. So click on circle, and then you can just click and drag, and that will just create a line, a normal line shape circle for you. Let's delete that. Let's look at text quickly. So text, and just click anywhere. Just zoom out here a bit and just rotate around, and then you can actually type something in here. So let's just type VFX, and that will create that text line for you as well. Let's just go back to the properties, and you can also change the font here, so you can go through your different fonts in that area. And let's set it back to Arial, and you can set your size and your all these other text, normal text options. Okay, let's say we want to extrude the text. I'm not really going to go into detail about extruding, etc. for now, but let me just quickly show you guys. So with your text selected, click on the modifier list drop down here, and let's go to extrude, and then you can up the amount of extrusion, and that will basically extrude your text so that you can render it. So let's just set that down to, let's say, 0.5. And there you go. So then you actually give your normal shape layer some depth so that you can render that. So let's delete that, and let's go back to the create panel. Let's go back to geometry, and one more thing that I didn't show you is the teapot. Really cool. So you can create a teapot, and let's just create something like a sphere quickly. So let's set up a sphere. If you look at the parameters of that sphere, you'll get your radius. So you can set this to, say, 1 meter radius. Then you've got a perfect 1 meter radius sphere. And then you'll see it's got a segments section as well. So this is the amount of segments around. So if you lower this, it will actually have less segments, and it will be more kind of blocky. So there you can see it's not as smooth. And if we set this to, say, around 64 or something, then it will be quite smooth, lots of segments. We can even put it up to 128 or higher, and that will give you a nice and smooth sphere. Let's delete that. Let's go back to the create panel, and let's create a cylinder. So click somewhere, drag and click again. Same with the cylinder, you've got your radius, which is the radius of your cylinder. So you can, let's set that to 0.5, and then you've got the height. So let's set that to 2 meters. And then you've got your height segments. So if you up this will increase the amount of segments upwards. So later on when you get to edit these objects, then I'll tell you why this is very important. And then you've got your cap segments, which is at the top. So if I zoom in here a bit, you'll see if I up the cap segments amount, it will create more segments here, more geometry that you can later work with. Okay, then we also have sides. So this is similar to the segments of the sphere. So if you make this a smaller number, this will be more kind of blocky, more square. And if you make this number higher, it will give you a smoother object. So if you set this to say 128, you'll have a nice and round, smooth cylinder. Okay, so let's delete that. Let's go back to our create panel, and let's maybe try and create a plane as well. So let's just click and drag. That's your plane. So as you can see, this one's got a length and a width as well. So let's set that to 2 meters by 2 meters. And then you've got your length segments and also your width segments. So if you set this to 1 by 1, you'll see that this will only have 1 segment by 1 segment. So let's change this to 20 segments and 20 segments. So it will have 20 segments in the length and 20 segments in the width. And later on when we'll get to subdivision editing, you'll see why this is quite important. And that's basically how you create geometry in 3ds Max, and I'll see you in the next video.